Well, it may seem like the world is getting crazier and crazier with each passing year. At least for 2023, there were a few cool things for me. Granted, some of them have been around for a while, but they're new to me that I thought were kind of neat from this year. And well, 2024, oh boy, that could be a bit of a doozy, but there's probably at least a few high points we can look forward to. On the topic of things that are kind of old but are new to me, I finally got to play this game for the first time this year. This is Lord of the Rings, the living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. It is a cooperative card game for 1 to 4 players, and it's set in the book universe of Lord of the Rings. There are a few differences between the books and the movies. And it is an absolutely fantastic game. And I believe it came out about 10 years ago, but Fantasy Flight is currently in the process of re-releasing some things, so some of the old sets are now becoming more accessible and they're being repackaged in different formats. This game is a precursor to Arkham Horror, which is also a fantastic game, by the way. And that's kind of how I got into the living card game idea for Fantasy Flight's products. I would say it's kind of frustrating to say which one of those two is better. There's aspects of this that I like. This is less brutal, less difficult, and just kind of less terrifying, suspenseful than Arkham Horror, which is probably a good thing. But there are some things they added in the Cthulhu stuff in terms of the campaign system, advancing your deck, and stuff like that that are not present in this game. But if you like the whole living card game experience where you're building a deck from a set of cards, taking on some sort of cooperative adventure, this is a fantastic game to look into, especially if you love Lord of the Rings. One final note, I do want to talk about it. It is for technically 1 to 4 players. You can play this solo, but honestly, the game's not really designed for that. It's kind of easy to get screwed over really hard, really fast when you're playing the game by yourself. So you may need to tweak some of the rules a little bit to have a good experience if you're just doing a solo play, but it is an option with this game. The second one here is what happens when I tend to run my mouth on the internet a bit too much. At least I think I did, maybe not. I don't quite remember everything I say, to be honest with you. But I believe at some point I said that if Nerf ever makes a serious blaster, I would buy it, and unexpectedly they actually did this year. So I followed through my word and I bought it. This is the Nerf Strife X. It is the quote pro line blaster. I know people get triggered with that term pro when it comes to Nerf stuff. But it's pretty much a high performance Nerf blaster, half length darts, 150-ish feet per second. Kind of loud. Essentially what Nerf did is it took a lot of the common upgrades people were making to the original Strife, packaged them in a commercial package, and sold it exclusively on Amazon, which was okay, whatever. But one cool thing they did do is they made it compatible with some of the common third-party accessories. Like I believe this is not the actual magazine it comes with. This is, someone knows, Talon maybe? It's one of those third-party magazines and actually works really well with the blaster, which is pretty cool for a large company to actually do. So if you're in the market for one of these, quote, pro-level blasters, this is one you may want to look into. When I bought it, a little bit after it came out, the price is already being discounted a bit, which is not a great thing for a product line, but it's good if you're looking for a pretty cool blaster. The main downside to it is at the time that this is being recorded, at least just a little while ago, you can't buy a separate battery pack. So yeah, that's the only kind of downside to this thing. But otherwise, it's a pretty cool toy. Moving on to number 3 for me was getting into ant-weight combat robots. Now, I got back into combat robots a few years ago, and the whole COVID thing happened, and I didn't compete for a couple of years. So there wasn't really anything around here. And I was always a bit not thrilled with ant weights. Going back 20 plus years that I originally got into this hobby, ant weights back then really sucked. Go find videos of them. They were hacked servos moving along the ground at about, an inch a second, slowly pushing each other out of a pit. I can't recommend ever watching that again. And I kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Even when I got into beta weights a few years ago, I wasn't super impressed with them. But they're a lot of fun. They're finally getting to the point where they're dangerous, they can do a lot of damage, and they're relatively accessible. I don't know if I recommend whether Antweight for beta weights for your first combat robot. There's advantages to both. The main downside to an Antweight is there is a bit of optimization you have to go through to get into that 1 pound weight limit. But it was a lot of fun competing with Nylon Brigade here, and hopefully this year in 2024, that should be next year at the time of recording this, I'll get a few more rounds of combat in with this guy at a couple of different tournaments, but I don't know. Well, the new version, this is the original version. We'll see how things go. For item number 4, it's a bit of a late entry into this list, and I have nothing in front of me here because it's actually a movie. I am more or less not in tune with popular culture at all, but I found out there was a new Japanese Godzilla movie coming out. It may still be in theaters at the time you're watching this. I went and saw it about a week ago. It's Godzilla -1, and it is absolutely fantastic. With a disclaimer, I never saw Shin Godzilla. This is by far the best Godzilla movie that's ever been made. It's got a good story, fairly entertaining characters. The visual effects are amazing. Godzilla's atomic breath is freaking crazy. It's intense. So yes, it's well worth a watch. Even if you're not a big fan of monster films, you may actually enjoy this because it's a very good normal movie. Normally Godzilla, you go and watch those movies to see giant monsters beat each other up. But there's a lot more to this movie than just that. For the last 2 items on my list of favorite things, of course, if you watch a bunch of videos on the channel, you know that I'm a triathlete, and I've absolutely fallen in love with the sport. And let me just say, if you're looking for a really good exercise plan that's built around burning fat as well as building lean muscle, triathlon is an excellent option. Even if you don't want to actually do any of the racing, you get a nice variety workout, the swim, bike, run, and yes, you can do all those things all year round. I'm swimming in the pool all winter long. I'm on Zwift. Riding my bike that way, and yes, I'm still running outside even though it gets down to 0 degrees in the state of Michigan pretty, well, not regularly, but every now and then it does. It's a bit intense. And as a bonus, if you do things right, you're going to end up meeting some of the best friends you ever had in your entire life. So for these last 2 items are both racing related. No, actually this is not racing related, this is training related. You actually can't. These aren't explicitly banned in triathlons, at least some of the rule sets, but in the spirit of the laws, you really don't want to use it. This is a Garmin Varia radar. It is more of a training device, is what I should be saying. It goes on the back of your bike. It can be mounted pretty much on any bike you want. And what it does is it gives you about approximately a 500 feet, 150-ish meter range behind you to where they detect incoming objects like cars and bikes. So for me, when I'm racing my triathlon bike around the park, when I'm on the road there, I honestly can't hear cars come up behind me when I'm tucked in the aero position. This thing here is a fantastic way to get around that. I can see, well, I see because these links to my bike computer, and I can basically see the distance of the car coming up to me. I know they're there, and when I know there's a car there, I can be a little more attentive to what I'm doing, not tend to drift a little bit off to the left, what I shouldn't be doing anyway, but I do. Irregardless, if you like bike safety, these kind of things are a great option. It does pair with some of the higher end Garmin bike computers, so you got to have one of those to go with it, but it's a really nice thing to have if you do ride bikes on the road. And for the last item, which is a dedicated race item here, if you follow the world of road racing in terms of running, you'll probably know that almost every, if not every, world record in regards to running has been broken in the last 5 years because of something like this. These are super shoes. In this case, these are these Saucony Endorphin Pro 3, but there are a few other manufacturers that make similar shoes. And their combination of carbon fiber plates and the EVA foam on the bottom, it's no joke. I was kind of against these things for a number of years because I thought they're kind of cheating, and frankly, they kind of are. They legitimately will give you a nice high-end boost in top speed. I think at my 5K pace, it's probably looking like 15 seconds per mile, which is pretty freaking intense. I wore these the first 2 races I had when I got them this year. One was a 5K. I smashed my personal 5K best by about 7 seconds per mile without even being properly trained for what I think I could run my previous 5K best at. And then I wore them again a few weeks later to a 15K race, and I smashed the personal best on that course. Despite being a super hard course, we had to climb up a massive hill twice. There are some limitations about how you got to use these things. You can kind of hurt yourself if you're not careful. And the biggest downsides to them is they're friggin' expensive. This particular pair is around $225 US, and they're only good for about 150 miles at best. So they're definitely a dedicated race product, but if you're looking to compete at the highest level, even if that means local 5K races, you really need to have a pair of these. It's kind of unfortunate. If you're gonna show up to a race without these, it's gonna be a real struggle to win or even win your age group. All right, let's talk about a few things coming up that I'm looking forward to in 2024. First two items on the list are some miniature related projects that I was kind of expecting. Battletech Mercenaries, which I backed earlier in the year, will probably be delivering around April of 2024. And I also ended up buying some of the miniatures from the Ravage Star miniature games by the Mini Wargaming guys. I didn't buy one of the starter sets, just some of the bugs because they look cool. So I'm not sure if that's going to show up later in the year. It may or may not. I don't know when the actual delivery date is off the top of my head. But I'll have to take a look at those when they show up at that time. No word whether they're still going to have some communist iconography on the cards or not. Also, another thing that I said I was looking forward to in 2023 that got delayed to 2024, as it was kind of hinted at in the Games Workshop's financial report, is going to be Space Marine 2. That's currently slated for September of 2024. Hopefully it actually comes out on time, because that game, I'm really looking forward to that game, because when the original one came out some 13 years ago or so, it was absolutely awesome. All right, and then in terms of new things, once again, I'm kind of out of touch with some pop culture stuff, and I have no idea how I missed this. I'm very cautiously optimistic because Amazon doesn't have the best reputation when it comes to managing content. And no, it's not the Warhammer 40K television deal, because that just got signed at the end of the year, about a week before I'm recording this. So I don't think we're going to see anything for that next year. But Amazon is releasing a TV series based on the Fallout video games. That's going to be out in April of 2024. And it could be cool. I'm really hoping it is, but I don't know much about it other than a very broad plot line. It roughly follows a video game idea where a main character emerges from one of the vaults and they're interacting with the Wasteland characters in it. We know there's going to be a ghoul in it. There's a Brother of Steel character in it. Brotherhood of Steel. Better get that right. And that is pretty much all we really know at this point. Hopefully it could be good. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that's about all I got for you guys this time. I got a few videos coming up here early in January. I want to get the robot finished up for some competitions as soon as possible. And most of the sawdust is kind of off me at this point, but I spent the last few days down in my workshop building myself a new stand for my 3D printer, so that video will be coming out probably sometime in January as well. It's a much more dedicated 3D printer stand, unlike the previous video where I built a table, called it a 3D printer stand, and a bunch of people watched it. So I'm making a real video this time. Alright guys, I'm Jason, the creator of the Tabletop Battlefield. Thank you guys all for watching for the last time this year. Hope you had a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll see you in 2024.